Auzubillahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and a very warm welcome to World This Morning. I am your host Hajra Sati and joining me is my wonderful co-host Ahmed Nawaz. Assalamu alaikum Ahmed.
Walaikum assalam. Good morning. How are you?
Alhamdulillah. So it's a very fine morning in Islamabad because it was raining yesterday and I think it rained in the morning also. So Islamabad is really lush and beautiful and green and I think after the rain when there's a shower, there's a complete shower of Islamabad, it looks most beautiful.
Absolutely. I think winters are just around the corner now.
Right.
We've been waiting to step in,
Right.
but then the heat kicks back. But finally, we might say that the temperature is now going down a bit. Speaking of many things that are happening all over the world, Hajra, one very interesting thing is happening that you obviously told me about, and I was very, very interested.
Okay. So why don't you take a lead?
It's sort of, where you come at a point where you think that, no, this is injustice towards me and probably some of my colleagues as well. So Hajra actually told me that there is an international movement going on right now which actually is about not working. So people who don't want to work have an international movement saying working is against the norms of life.
And that philosophy is very much embedded into very socialist sort of a concept because they feel that they're being exploited and the value that they're putting into their work, they're not getting it back when it comes to that. So there's an anti-work movement and it has garnered a lot of support online, and especially after the COVID, they have seen that how companies were forcing them to work and put on their maximum so that they can maximize their profits, and they felt that there was a burnout for them and they were not being taken care of enough when it comes to them. And so there's a lot of narratives into this anti-work movement. One of them is they need to have a better support care system in the place, and then they should have a more organized labor unions when it comes to that. Some of them were asking about to slash down very abusive culture in the workplace.
Absolutely.
Right?
I think now we can define a terminology that there are hardworking people and then there are anti-working people.
Right.
So that we can clarify. But let's, of course, update you on some of the developments that are happening in the world as well, especially in Pakistan, in the detailed news items that we've got. First of all, Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif is going to be participating in a 2-day conference. It's a summit on the interaction and confidence building measures in Asia that begins in Astana, Kazakhstan today. And of course, when we talk about the Prime Minister as a statesman, he's been he's visited the UN recently, where he advocated Pakistan's case for climate change and for stepping up measures for climate change as well. He's going to be the vice president of the COP27, and now recently when we talk about current measures that are being taken in Asia, those are going to be deliberated when the Prime Minister attends this conference.
Right, and moving on to another good news that we really want to share on this very fine morning, that is Pakistan's women cricket team defeated Sri Lanka's side by 5 wickets in the last group match of women's T20 Asia Cup cricket
speaking of Pakistan's victory, we also know that Pakistan's street child football team also won their first match against Sudan in the Street Child Football World Cup being played in Qatar as well. So many good things coming for Pakistan in sports and various domains. I think it's very, very exciting. But of course, Hajra, today brings us to a very, very important theme as well. Today is World Arthritis Day that is being observed throughout the world, and it highlights the importance of recognizing arthritis and taking measures to not just eliminate it but control it as well. And we do know that in Pakistan this is a major problem.
And this is a disease that affects the joints, Ahmed, and its frequent symptoms are joint pain, swelling, stiffness, redness on the skin, and reduced motion in the affected joints. Arthritis it itself is an umbrella term for more than 100 types of rheumatic diseases, and it has other types of rheumatic diseases that includes gout, lupus, and septic arthritis. So the theme for this year is "It's in your hands, take action."
Absolutely.
The theme aims to raise awareness about the disease amongst patients, caregivers, families, and general public. The day demands urgent steps to take regarding arthritis, keeping in view the modern sciences.
Absolutely. Very, very important to recognize it, work upon it as well. Like I said, that we're a society that goes towards a deficiency of calcium and other vitamins as well. That's why it's very important, especially for the female segment, to be aware of arthritis as well. That being said, of course, Pakistan recently was hit by a natural calamity when we talk about the recent flooding. Now, disasters happen all around the world, but the role of us, media, is very, very important when it comes to highlighting the impacts of those disasters and also to carry out relief and rescue operations as well. We've got a fantastic report on that. Let's take a look and then we'll continue the discussion with a very honorable guest.
A disaster can seriously disrupt a community's or society's daily operations and result in the loss of lives, livelihoods, and environmental disarray. The impact of these natural catastrophes is sometimes the most destructive, making them more difficult to deal with in developing nations like India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bhutan, Bangladesh, etc. The role of media is very crucial in creating public awareness. Millions of people in Pakistan have continued to be exposed to hardship and poverty as a result of these calamities occurring more frequently. The ongoing regional battle against terrorism, internal conflicts, and climate change has all had an impact on the environment. Pakistan has experienced massive destruction at the hands of both natural and man-made disasters throughout history. From the year 2000 till date, Pakistan has faced 97 major and minor catastrophes, with 83,073 dead, 52,975,809 affected, and a total loss of around $25,752,648, according to Emergency Event Database. In the past, Pakistani media has played quite an appreciable role in disaster management by motivating the nation to stand united during times of crisis, but it can do a lot more. There is a need for greater media involvement in disaster mitigation. The Pakistani media needs to specifically focus on resource management, providing early warnings and panic management. Information conveyed in an effective manner can contribute in mitigating disaster or in damage control. Media can play a responsible and significant role in the mitigation phase by helping out the governments and performing the roles narrated above. It can also increase political involvement in order to make leaders more responsive and can trigger donations from the international community. According to Pakistan Disaster Knowledge Network, PDKN, media can play a positive role by disseminating warnings, providing information to communities, creating awareness about precautionary measures to be taken to avoid damage, influencing decision makers, and bridging any communication gap. Knowing the information dissemination systems of different media and having an efficient information dissemination plan for disaster pre-warning plays a very important role in reducing losses and ensuring the safety of human beings. Media can communicate information to the people and concerned authorities in order to prevent damage and minimize losses. Information regarding prevention and early warning can help in mitigation of disasters.
Of course, there's a symbiotic sort of a relationship between the media, between the humanitarian aid workers and the first responders, which is also known as the community, which is affected by the disaster. So in order to explore this relationship more, we have a very wonderful guest in the studio who's going to explain the importance of it and how media plays a role in the disaster management and the disaster reporting when it comes to that. So we are very lucky, Ahmed, that we have been joined by a very prestigious personality. He happens to be Dr. Farooq Shahzad. He is the head of the Department of the Mass Communication at the Beria University. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum assalam, and thank you very much for inviting me to speak on this important topic.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we have seen that Pakistan is prone to climate-induced disasters. There were floodings. Before the floodings, there were globs, there were wildfires, famines, whatnot, right? And we've also seen that how our media is covering all of these disasters. So as a practitioner, or rather I would say an academician who was closely studying the media landscape, what is your observation of how Pakistani media reported and what are the missing gaps in those sort of reports? Because considering the fact that they've also filled the airways and they have to move on the 24/7 news cycle when it comes to that. So they have a lot of pressure when it comes to that. What is your take on that?
Yes, of course, because they have to cover a lot of things. But the most important thing when we talk about the climate change or the disaster, because it's a specialized beat. So what is missing in Pakistan, by and large, that is that we don't have the trained journalist who can understand this particular area, this particular field, that this is a crisis communication, so that must be dealt differently than the other communication, because here the media has a significant role. First, in early warning system, whenever we have reports that disasters they are going to happen, or we have rains in the coming months, so there the media has to, and the media person, especially the journalist, so they have to prepare good reports on that to sensitize people rather than creating panic. So what happens in our, especially in our community, that we are more into the chaos and the panic than
sensationalization. information.
Yes. So information is the key. So information comes when you have a proper knowledge and understanding of that disaster. So when it comes to Pakistan, so hardly I would say that we don't have any media outlet in Pakistan which has a proper crisis communication desk which can deal with such crisis. So that's why we see that whenever this crisis happens here, instead of focusing on the crisis, we go into the blame game thing. We go into the blaming the others, so kind of thing, instead of talking about that particular disaster. So that's where the information role, which is very important for the people who are at the receiving end. So there we see that media is, at times we see there is a lack of the accurate information, the information which is required, which can help the audiences, the particular community which is at risk. So there we see that information at the level of information, we see that media is at times is not giving that particular information in a more comprehensive way which can sensitize people.
That comes to the practical part of it, sir, but obviously because we've all been students of media studies coming into this field as well, we were taught many things in our course of universities, excuse me, that included news reporting, writing, how to make packages and digital media, many sort of things. Do you also believe that probably on the curriculum level we can have this as a subject which is of extreme importance, considering the fact that Pakistan is one of the those countries that are most vulnerable to climate change and disasters?
Yes, of course, you're right. Now, in the past 2 to 3 years, we have seen that the academia, the universities, they have incorporated crisis communication, a specific course which is designed to deal with the crisis. So, where the students, the future media practitioners, they are being taught about how to cover such events. So that's what I was talking in the earlier point, that we are more focusing on that. As a journalist, your job is to specifically talk about the crisis, what the crisis is, rather than going beyond that crisis. So what happens when you don't have the specialization in that particular field? So you are more interested into the other peripheries, other peripheries. You are more into that. So that's why this course is being taught in the universities, where students are being, they are being taught that how to cover such crisis and how to go about that. And especially Pakistan is, at the receiving end in the past 10 years, we have seen there were many disasters which were unfolded here. So there is a need that we must have good journalists, good reporters who can be more productive when it comes to the dissemination of information and highlighting.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
And adding to this conversation, I do remember I did had the conflict and disaster reporting course in my studies. So my university prepared me for that, and I'm grateful for that. And talking about more of the disaster reporting and the role of the media, and especially the technology that is very much ingrained into our fabric right now. How do you think technology plays a role in the conflict or disaster reporting when it comes to that? Because I do remember when there was an earthquake, so Facebook had this check safety mark out there. So a lot of people can mark it out when there was an earthquake. But considering the landscape of Pakistan, especially in the rural areas, the penetration of technology is not that great, right? The smartphones might not be there. So how do you think in such sort of situation, scenario, journalists can play their role using the technology of the social media?
Yes, capacity building is one of the key area where we really need to focus on, especially the journalists who are at the north, because all the calamity which is happening, especially when it comes to the flooding, that is coming from the north. So I think media houses, they really need to focus on that. They have to equip their journalists with good technology, the latest technology, where, we have seen, if we go back in 2005 when we had earthquake. So at that time we did not have cell phones. So majority of the people, they were focusing on just one tower which was affected by the that earthquake. But later on we realized, we came to know that there was a huge disaster which unfolded in other parts. Again, why? Because there was a disconnect. So journalists who are working in peripheries, they are not being given good technology equipments from where they can report. So there is a need, and the countries which are prone to such disasters, they work on the state level as well, on where they
policy making, basically.
Policy making, and even they empower there are departments who are dealing with such crisis. We have departments here, and especially, I mean, the state television can do wonders as well, because you know that in Japan or other countries, even they have DSNGs which they operate through helicopter. So I mean, from there you can give real-time information to the people that this is what is unfolding.
Right.
So in Pakistan, we normally come across information after days, even today. I mean, when we have social media, as you said, but unfortunately, because you need digital literacy to handle the social media, so in our villages, people are not equipped well to, I mean, use these gadgets.
Capacity is the
yes,
issue.
capacity. But journalists can be. But I mean, that's where we really need to focus on the training of the journalists, and of course, to give them proper equipment. From there, they can report. And they can
Absolutely.
inform
I
the
think,
public.
you know, the concept of just the traffic copters all around the world, Hajra, we see
True.
that in the West, especially in Europe as well.
Right.
And then, you know, and obviously it comes down to the amount of resources that you have financially as well,
Right.
where major international channels are equipped with, you know,
Of course.
aircraft and flying equipment where they can do it as well. But another difference majorly that we've seen in people from other developed countries and then in Pakistan, especially journalists, when we talk about that fact, that there we see that the journalists, like you mentioned, the capacity and equipping them with the right tools and technology, is that they have the ability to do a single man everything which they can. They will shoot it, they will edit it, they will report it, do you know, everything in their capacity, and then at the final end, the timeline is such that it can be played instantly. While in Pakistan, we have a whole team of people, and still the delays are still accounted for.
Yes, of course. Yes, you're right. I mean, I think except PTV, none of the television have the academy where they train the journalists. So that's where the system is basically needs to be upgraded. That especially the people who are working, the journalists who are working in such areas, they should be trained that how to edit this, how to shoot this, and how to even uplink or upload this. So I mean, that's where we see that having the team of 5 to 10 people, and still we are not at that level where we should be. So again, as you said, we really need to, I think, gear up. And of course, because I mean, if we link it, that why this is happening, because when media emerged in Pakistan, especially the electronic media, we did not have professionals who were trained or who were properly have the media education. But now we have the universities which are offering media courses, specialized courses, and especially now we have the courses in digital media and in television. So we can expect that in the next 5 to 10 years, we will have certain people who will have the capacity to deal with all these issues which we are currently facing. So let's hope for the best.
Certainly, no, why not?
Certainly.
We're always optimistic
Of
about
course.
the workforce. And you know, one thing is great to see, and Hajra would agree, because
Right.
we come from those academic backgrounds where we've made our way,
Right.
that there is a huge lot of young people who are now investing themselves in the media field.
And of course, with the advent of the social media, everyone has their own pages where they're reporting, but I don't know about the sustainability model. That is something that needs to be worked on. But moving on to the Reuters digital report, which came in, and it had, of course, it was a very Eurocentric report, but then it had few findings that I do find that has a lot of relevance in Pakistani society too. And one of the finding was that people are divesting away from the news. They have stopped reading news because they feel that the news is very depressing, or they do not like to read the news, or the social media which has invested them with the power, and it is sending exactly the sort of the news or the content which they really want to see. So in this sort of scenario, what can media houses do in order to make a good trust building relationship with their audience and to hark them back to the news?
I think especially in the past 5 years, this is more of a national issue now, that we do not believe on the information. We always discredit others. I mean, even from the political communication, everywhere you will find that people are doing the similar thing. So here, of course, yes, people, they don't believe on the information which is being provided by the media. Why? Because the credibility of the journalist matters. So when they see a journalist who has done some reporting, and later on they realize that that report was not factual,
Accurate,
correct.
yes.
So what happened, that after that they don't trust on that journalist. So I mean, the concept of the news director or the news editor in the newsroom needs to be more, I mean, the responsibility given to them to basically ask the reporter
Right.
to come up with the information that is accurate, that is factual at least. I won't say that should be objective and all that, but there should be some facts.
But Dr. Saab, we are obsessed with faces as well. You know, it really pains me when I see that a big credible mainstream anchor on television, when he goes to do reporting in a disaster prone areas, and different channels did send their mainstream people, I will not name them of course, but you're well aware of them. When they did it, it became more effective. But the people who were on ground for the past 10 to 12 days, the reporters, the cameramen, they had been doing even more than that, but the credibility of them was not established because we're more prone towards faces.
Yes, we have created a concept of celebrities when it comes to anchors. So that's why the people are more interested in celebrities than the real journalists. So that's where your real journalism is suffering. The journalism which is the core that you have to inform people about the happenings and all that. So whenever you see a celebrity is going in that particular area, so he or she is following a certain channel or working in a certain channel, so you'll find the complete framing of that news in that particular direction. And at the same time, you'll find another journalist who is covering the same area, and you'll find a different report. So I mean, as a layman,
as a viewer,
yes, how am I going to believe on the news? So that's where I think we really need to understand that the credibility of media is very important, whether it is private channels or the government channel. Here, the journalists, they really need to work on this, because if the people, as the report suggests, that the people, they are not, I mean, relying or believing on the information, so this is very, I would say, catastrophic for this industry. That, I mean, the people, they are turning away from this media when it comes to news. And the basic function of the media is to inform people.
Absolutely,
So,
which was the main core value of it as well.
Of course. And at the closing note, I would really like to ask you. So I, Ahmed, believe that well-informed opinions are way better than the archaic model of the objectivity in the journalism, which is being debated around the journalism schools, that objectivity is a very past term. There is no such truth, especially when it comes to media. What is your opinion on that?
Of course, yes, I believe that objectivity is only limited to the facts. So, I mean, when it comes to facts, you can be objective. But rest of the commentary or rest of the content, of course, there will be, you have to go with the informed opinion, you have to build certain opinion. And of course, whenever there is a crisis, you always want to create a hope. So when you want to create a hope, so of course then you have to leave the objectivity which is being taught in academia, especially that the entire report should be objective. But I think over the years, even that has changed in academia. We are telling the students that it's more subjective. Things are more subjective now. So
very true. That does come into perspective. But Dr. Farooq, thank you very much for joining us. It was a pleasure and an honor having you on the show. And you lot at Barrier University, I think you're very lucky if you're from the Media Studies department, because you've got a gentleman who understands those practical implications of things as well. And definitely you can benefit academically and from his practical experience as well. On that note, we'll go towards a short break. When we come back, we'll be discussing things further. Stay tuned to World This Morning.
Welcome back, and we know, Ahmad, that this is the month of Rabiul Awwal, and it is the month where Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born, and we know that how his contributions towards the humanity has enlightened the entire humanity when it comes to that.
Absolutely.
And one of the key points, Ahmad, of his life sallallahu alaihi wasallam was to serve the humanity when it comes to that, and not just the Muslim community but all of the humanity, and it included the ecological systems and whatnot. So he gave an entire system in place so that we can have a very nourishing, not just spiritually, materialistically, but also our soul can have a very nourishing life when it comes to that, right? So without any further ado, I would really like to introduce my guest, and I wanted to talk on more on the topic of serving humanity. So we are very lucky that we have been joined by Muhammad Abdul Wahab, who happens to be former information officer of United Nations. Assalamu alaikum, sir, and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Walaikum Assalam. It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you very much for joining us. And of course, we need to connect spiritually as well.
Right.
And they say that one of the best ways to pay homage to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khatamun Nabiyeen, is through reciting Naat. And of course, those verses make you connect spiritually to the teachings and the love that you have imparted in your soul, not just in your heart, to the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Khatamun Nabiyeen as well. And for that, we've been joined in studios by Maulana Hafiz Imran Madni Kasuri. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Sir, please.
रुतबा सुनावा सोने नबी दा रुतबा सुनावा सोने नबी दा सोने नबी दा प्यारे नबी दा नबियां दे नबी दा रुतबा सुनावा रुतबा सुनावा और मेरे नबी नू रब ने ऐसा बनाया मेरे नबी नू रब ने ऐसा बनाया अज तई जहान कोई ऐसा न आया अज तई जहान कोई ऐसा न आया ऐसा मुकाम मेरे नबी दा ऐसा मुकाम मेरे नबी दा सोने नबी दा प्यारे नबी दा नबियां दे नबी दा रुतबा सुनावा रुतबा सुनावा और जिब्रील रुक गया है सिदरा मुकाम ते जिब्रील रुक गया है सिदरा मुकाम ते मेरा नबी गया है खुद ला मकाते जिब्रील रुक गया है सिदरा मुकाम ते मेरा नबी गया है खुद ला मकाते नूरी गुलामे मेरे नबी दा नूरी गुलामे मेरे नबी दा सोने नबी दा प्यारे नबी दा नबियां दे नबी दा रुतबा सुनावा रुतबा सुनावा और विच हशर आशिकां नू फिकरा दिलोड़ नहीं विच हशर आशिकां नू फिकरा दिलोड़ नहीं रहमत मेरा नबी है रहमत दी थोड़ नहीं रहमत मेरा नबी है रहमत दी थोड़ नहीं कौसर दजा में मेरे नबी दा कौसर दजा में मेरे नबी दा सोने नबी दा प्यारे नबी दा नबियां दे नबी दा रुतबा सुनावा रुतबा सुनावा
जज़ाकल्लाह, जज़ाकल्लाह।
नबी दा
सुभान अल्लाह,
सुभान अल्लाह। Jazakallah.
The entire life of the Holy Prophet
Sallallahu alaihi
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Khatamun Nabiyeen, was based on the concept of serving humanity.
True.
And often it is narrated that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, Khatamun Nabiyeen, would be observed crying, and he would be asked that, Ya Rasulullah, why are you upset? Why are you, sad or crying? And he said that, I'm worried for my ummah, and that is all that he was worried for throughout his lifetime.
True.
And even for those who would come after him as well. So, that just speaks the volume of a personality for whom the universe was created.
That's true, that's true. And Ahmed, fast forwarding it to the 21st century, the 20th century when it comes to that. So we see that there's a lot of focus on the human rights, on the humanity, but we see that these ideals were enshrined in the Islamic code back in 1400 years ago, right? So I really wanted to throw this question to our worthy and esteemed guest. So sir, I really wanted to ask you, so we see now there is a lot of focus on human rights discourse and whatnot, but the principles of serving humanity were enshrined by Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam.
Exactly.
So please enlighten us.
Haja, you are absolutely right. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. You see, Islam got developed as Islam from Judaism, Christianity and Islam. You see, so we can't say that Islam came 1400 years ago. Islam was there right from the creation of this earth.
Right.
The creation of Hazrat Adam alayhi salam and Hazrat Hawa alayhi salam is the proof the universe started with them, you see. So basically Allah Ta'ala in Quran enshrined all the laws for Muslims how to serve humanity.
True.
Para 2 ayah 177 is extremely explicit in terms of the roles of Muslims. Meaning of this ayah is that as Muslims, it's not Islam that you turn your faces towards east or west. Islam is that you have a pure heart, you believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you believe in his prophets and Huzur Akram sallallahu alayhi wa sallam as his last prophet. You believe in angels, you believe in serving humanity. When it comes to humanity, one's family is included, one's neighbors are included, one's friends are included, all those who need your help, all those who are hungry, those who are destitute, all those who need your help, they have been ordered to be helped by the Creator, by God Almighty. You see, so after this surah, in my personal opinion, nothing is left to be defined. Basically, what must happen as Muslims, we should never forget what we have been ordered to do. Unfortunately, what we do, we do not read Quran, we do not understand Quran. Now, what's the problem? As a nation, unfortunately, we have committed some blunders. Arabic should have been our first language. You see, if we had Arabic our first language, at least we were not guilty of not understanding what Quran says.
True.
And now Quran stresses serving humanity. What we do not know that our salvation in hereafter is directly related to serving humanity.
It becomes part of our Aqidah, basically.
Exactly. This is part of our belief, you know.
Right.
At the same time, we are not able to convey this message to the world. Since 9/11, Muslims have been labeled as terrorists.
True.
What for? Why? This has been a larger and bigger conspiracy. You see? What I blame Muslims, even my own self, we must, even if we haven't done so far, right from today, we must start reading Quran with translation. It's very easy. We can finish Quran in 2-3 months with translation, and at least daily we can read 2 pages of translation only.
Yeah, with tafsir, yes.
Exactly. In order to revive our knowledge, in order to know what God is commanding to us. Basically, what is happening? Since we are not reading Quran, we are not getting that message regularly. We are passing our lives as with our personal whims and desires. We follow every culture, but not Islamic culture. You see, we follow commandments of all those worldly leaders, but we do not, want to know what Allah has commanded us and what Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has exhibited to us through his life.
Well, because you, as a former press information officer yourself at the UN and having that exposure of many other countries, we're very intrigued with the development and the pace with those countries. Do you think, and I might not be correct, that one of the reasons that why they've developed as societies is because that the entire guidelines that were given to us,
Exactly.
that we were custodians of those guidelines,
Yeah.
and I talk about in perspective of only serving humanity, have been implemented by them. People are
Exactly.
stopping at zebra
Yeah.
crossings.
That's
People are
what-
giving way.
Exactly.
People are making sure that the person next to them, if he's a bit down emotionally or financially, they're asking him. Do you think that is the main reason why they've become those developed societies?
That's what compelled Allama Iqbal, Sir Allama Iqbal, back, how many years back? Decades ago. When he went to Europe, he came back, he said, somebody asked him, how did you find Europe and Europeans? He said, I found Europe following Islam and we following no religion. So basically what happens, as I said earlier, Islam basically commands us to serve humanity. When it comes to humanity, first we need to serve our own families, our older parents, our brothers, sisters, our children. Then we have to see around our neighbors. What is happening? Why we do have so much poverty? There are people who are eating a lot, there are people who are possessing a lot, and there are people who have nothing. They don't have even enough to eat once a day. Why this happens? The reason being, we are not serving humanity. Look at these floods. What has been happening, has been really, horrible. It's just like a nightmare that our vast majority in rural areas, since their villages have been inundated by water and they can't grow anything, they can't rear any animals to fulfill their daily needs. So what is happening? They're left with nothing. They can't even sleep, The thing is, we should have been helping. We are helping as well. International aid is coming. In my personal opinion, at least, we should even now start coordinating to take this help to every nook and corner of the country where people are in need. What is happening even now? There are certain villages where from news are coming that help hasn't reached. You see, the reason being, some of us even can blame them. Oh, why they are not helping themselves? The reason is those poor people, they have nothing there literally left. In order to build something, you need to have at least some basic material.
Right.
Unfortunately, they are not left with that basic material even.
Right. Just let's explore the relationship between the non-minorities and how Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam treated them and the entire discourse on the serving humanity. So, Ahmad, we are well aware of the fact that the Ottoman Empire or the early Muslim empires were the real example or manifestation of the tolerance,
Absolutely.
multiculturalism, the mantra which is very much predominant in the 21st century in the West. So, when the Jews were expelled by the Spanish Empire, they found the refuge in the Ottoman Empire. So were the Muslims, and they were the perfect examples of how they were following the orders of Holy Prophet Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they laid principles or the society which was very multicultural and tolerant when it comes to that, right? So how do you fit the narrative of the non-Muslim communities or the minority communities and the serving humanity? What does Islam says on that?
Islam is very specific about that.
Right.
Islam says if you have taken one life, and you were not just, while taking that life, that means you have taken the life of whole humanity.
True.
When it comes to non-Muslims, there is a wrong belief. Again, it's my personal opinion.
Okay.
That you have to compel everybody to become Muslim. It's not like that. Islam never said that, never says, no ayah, no
There is no reference,
injunction.
yes.
There is nothing that you can forcefully convert anybody to Islam. Islam doesn't want that. Islam doesn't need that. Allah Ta'ala is free of that requirement.
Absolutely. Lead by example is what
Exactly.
Islam says.
What Islam says that non-Muslims are your responsibility in your state. You are the custodian of non-Muslims. You see, meaning if you are having like 10 people in front of you, out of those 5 are non-Muslims and 5 are Muslims, when any calamity fall on them or they are in danger, as Muslim, you're supposed to save those 5 non-Muslims first. Because
They have more a right of you. Yes.
because Allah Ta'ala has commanded, Huzur Akram Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has commanded, and it had been happening throughout the real Islamic era, you know. But basically what started happening, I mean, we stopped even taking care of Muslims, our own brothers.
Right.
So non-Muslims, they are also our brothers, but we got lost somewhere, no. That's why this question has had to be asked.
Absolutely.
Otherwise Islam is very specific.
Very pertinent. The guidelines are there,
Exactly.
but Wahab Sahab, I'm very sorry, I've been told I'm very short on time, but always insightful whenever we talk to you.
Thank
you
you
know,
so
it's
much.
such a boost of your own intellectual knowledge that you get to, realize whenever you talk to Wahab Sahab, and you realize that potential that each and every one of us possesses. But thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.